No, I'm open.
Oh, you're gonna be cute? It's expensive to go during or you just gotta be really lucky. Okay. Okay, so you guys have 48 hours. She'll, what I'll do is, I'm meeting with her tomorrow, so she can take a look at them and then she'll get them back to you guys. So from, yeah, 48 hours. And, oh, I need your bodies, yes.
Everybody has one of each, right?
Oh, everybody been checking in?
Was it?
Did you guys get this one?
You moved?
Yes.
It's not. Your location is messaging. Okay.
Did everyone get two?
So this is really, okay, so let me tell you guys something, the pressure is on. So ladies, you know that you are, you're like, oh yeah, tell me that. So you guys know that you are the only ones doing uncertainty reduction theory. The other class did not do uncertainty reduction theory because there's more people in this class than there is in the other class, so we have more presentations, which is good because the other class will be able to look at your presentation. I know that you sent me the video. What we have is a YouTube channel, so anybody who's ever missed class or anything like that, you can take a look at this YouTube channel, and I'll give you the information. Louis, keep this in mind in your notes, and remind me that I need to get the YouTube channel from the other student in the other class. She has the email address where we can, and the passcode, so we can all access that information. And really all it is the lectures. So you can see the differences between the lectures and Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday. And you guys, I have to tell you something right now. As far as presentations go, we've only had one. If I had to choose between the two presentations, I think that your class is actually in the runnings for the winner as far as the presentations go. Maybe, just maybe, at the end of the semester, due to who gives the best presentations, we should give additional points to the class set, right? Should we? What do you guys think? We'll see what's going on. I didn't mention this to the other class, but I can see that, yeah, you guys did a really good job. You kind of really set the bar really high. Didn't they do a good job in their presentation? So I hope we can keep kicking butt. Yay. All right, did everyone check in? Yes? Great.
Did everyone get two worksheets? Yes. Okay.
And I have a game for them to play about uncertainty reduction theory. Depending on the amount of time that we have, this is what we did in the other class. I'm going to divide the class in two, and we're going to have a debate on the epistemology of uncertainty reduction theory, and they're going to talk a lot about it because some people will really critique the epistemology of uncertainty reduction theory. They're like, how can you do this? So, timekeeper. Appreciate that. Take great notes.
So both of the sheets that you got, the one stapled one, it's gonna correlate with the PowerPoint. The words should be bolded and in red, so you'll know when to put that in there. And then the second one, we'll explain it when we get to the slide.
Yeah, and please feel free to raise your hand if we're going too fast with the slide, or to go back and ask questions the whole time, because it's the only way to learn, right? Okay. So, my name is Deirdre Boyle.
And I'm Devin Perry.
And today we're going to tell you about the uncertainty reduction theory.
Okay, so for our first little shindig, we're gonna do a fun activity. It's really fun. So we're gonna need everyone to get up and this side of the room, go over to that side of the room and go talk to someone you don't know. Introduce yourself, tell them your name, your major, where you're from, and just give them one fact about you.
A little bit of small talk.
Yeah. So we're gonna be about 1 or 2 minutes, so go ahead and go talk to someone you don't know. Make friends. Make sure it's
So how's your life? Good, good. Oh wow, that's very good. Oh, no, WYNO? No, I don't. I have no idea what that thing is. Dude, who's Johnny? What is that?
And then
I'm so excited. Like, if he does come in, I'll be like, Johnny, my man, what's going on? It's too funny from his bio. It says like he's a manager at Sports Center. And I was like, dude, what?
I was messed up and then like there's like security codes.
Oh man. But I just want to know how he got in and like what he was doing to people. I'm great. So how was your weekend? You doing good? I like it. Dude, I actually did the same thing. I'm not gonna lie. I had to write a bunch of like Java code and shit, so I had to do all that. And then my family came up, so I brought them a hockey game. And they were like, yeah. It was the first one ever, so they thought it was cool. Where is your family? They're down in Hudson Valley. Like that. Cornwall? Okay, it's kind of down there. I'm from Warwick. Oh, we're like 8 feet away. Okay, cool. Alright. Yeah, we know exactly where we are then. Alright, cool. I didn't know you were from Warwick. Dude, it's so sick. Oh, you've been like in Warwick all your life?
Since I was like 15.
Yeah, I moved to Cornwall when I was 13, so I'm in the same boat. Where were you before that?
New Jersey.
New Jersey? I was in Westchester. So all like not the same thing. But yeah. That's so cool, dude. Yeah, they were like, that's why they came. They were like, you've been here 4 years.
I have
and
free
don't
community
It's
service.
pretty lame. I was like, yeah, I know.
I'm struggling with
Come.
finding that right now, so this is frustrating.
Happy to job.
Do you do anything with like language or anything like that?
Are you going to the
I take
dance
French.
concert next week?
That class sucks too.
Rochester. Dude, it's like $12 class.
I'll see you around like
The Jackhouse, right? Destiny did on top of everything in Norway, but
Exchange numbers so that is okay, friends. Yeah. You want to talk to that person, find out what they live. Okay. So now that everyone is made new friends, how did everyone feel about what just happened? How did that make you feel?
It felt good.
Felt good. Was there any awkward moments going to meet someone?
Not at all.
No?
You were talking to Dr. Bell, so what are you doing?
Does anyone have any comments about how uncertain they felt during the little activity? No? It's okay. Okay. Continue from there.
No one said, actually, it's kind of hard because you guys know each other in the classroom, so it's not necessarily strangers, but if the activity was done with a bunch of strangers, then you would definitely probably have some feelings, because that's essentially what the theory is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Obviously, it was a little weird,
Mhm.
but since it's only small talk, I think it was a little easier. Like, we're not talking about personal things, like too personal. It's like, oh, major, like what you like to do, where you're from, kind of thing. So that stuff is a little easier for people to, speak about. But if you were to ask like really personal questions, I think it would be harder. So
Exactly.
open up to someone you don't know.
We'll go into more detail about what phase you guys were just in. So, any other comments? Okay. So these are just some of the key terms that we'll get into more detail about. The ones that I highlighted are a little extra important. All of them will be, actually all of these are blank in the worksheet, so they'll be described more. But these are just all the terms that were found to be most important in this chapter.
So a little bit about our theorists. We have Charles Berger and Richard Calabrese. Charles Berger, a little bit about his education. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Penn State. He got his master's and PhD in communication at Michigan State, and he is a fellow and past president of International Communication Association. So he's pretty well versed in his sphere of education, whatnot. And Richard Calabrese, as much as we did try to find out about him, he seems to be the mystery there.
Yeah.
So,
There's not one fact about him really there, except for the fact that he constructed the theory that
yes.
I wanted to ask you guys something, and don't worry, this is your taking off. I want you guys to think about something. They said that he has a bachelor's degree in psychology, okay? I think that that leads to maybe his understanding of how he sees the theory. It's a key point. Like, it seems like it's just kind of arbitrary, like, why are we talking about whether or not he has a bachelor's degree in psychology? But this idea that he has this bachelor's degree in psychology, I think leads to the idea of why does he look at the world the way he does? Why does he do the research the way that he does? Why is his epistemology social scientific? I'm asking these questions, you guys, keep it in mind, not just because but because I want you to think about why does he think that you can come up with these axioms and these theorems in the theory? Because that is kind of at the heart of this uncertainty reduction. And I hope you guys are writing this down, because these are the kind of things that we're going to need to talk about. Like, why does he think that theory should be social scientific? That he believes in the idea of an axiom, right? And you guys are going to talk about these axioms. And axioms are supposed to be these truths. So if A equals B, then this will always happen. And from those axioms, he also talked about something called theorems. And it talks about if you take this away and you add this, this is going to happen. But that's so social scientific. And I want you guys to just keep in your mind, while we're giving this presentation, why would he do such a thing? And do you, quote unquote, believe this idea of absolute truth and objectivity, or are you against it? Okay, so think about that overall arching thing. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but the bachelor's degree in psychology really just helped develop the concept of the Okay, so what was the theorist's goal? Berger and Calabrese's goal of composing the theory was to explain how communication is reduced uncertainties between strangers engaging in their first conversation. And for example, Deirdre and I are like really good friends, but we met just last year. We both were new to Oswego, and what we did was like, we both lived on the same floor, and we both didn't know anyone, so we got to know each other, and we just reduced our uncertainties. And it turned out to be work well, because now we're really good friends and roommates and all that.
That good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a couple motivations in the uncertainty reduction theory. The first one is to predict. So that's your ability to forecast one's own and others' behavioral choices. And to explain is the ability to interpret the meaning of behavioral choices. So in your interactions, maybe your initial interactions with someone, your ability to explain is how kind of you're processing what your behavior is and another's behavior is. And uncertainty exists whenever the number of possible alternatives in a given situation is high and the likelihood of their occurrence is relatively equal. And lastly, uncertainties decrease when alternatives are limited in number or there is an alternative that is usually chosen. So your uncertainty is going to go down when your alternatives are limited with your other individual that you're encountering.
Just to explain a quick example of the predict and explain part. Say you meet a celebrity on the street, you obviously don't know them, they don't know you, but how you interpret the meaning of what they say, you're not going to know, so your uncertainty is higher because you don't know that person, so you can't really, if he says something to you, does he mean something else? And then you're not going to be able to predict your next behavior because you don't know if you'll see him again. I mean, you'd be lucky if you saw him twice, but there's really, you can't predict what's going to be next. Okay, so the types of uncertainty encounters, these two are pretty big. The cognitive is the uncertainty associated with beliefs and attitude. So uncertainty is really high at this point if you don't know the person because you don't know their beliefs and their attitudes or what they put forth, and you don't want to tell them, And then behavioral is the uncertainty regarding the possible behavior occurring in a specific situation. So for example, there's cultural norms in small talk, and if one of those are violated, it's like the cognitively uncertain and like you can't reduce it because you don't really understand. So, for example, like if you're engaging in small talk and you give really inappropriate self-disclosure, it's violating the cultural norm because it's a little awkward, and the clip will kind of explain it more. And then we have self-disclosure, which is just personal messages like disclosed to other people. So you explaining like a situation or just like giving an information about yourself.
What is your deal? Do you not get how weird this is?
I just thought maybe we could talk because because my whole world just blew up and I don't have a job and I have no money of my own and I honestly do not know what I'm gonna do at all. And I have no friends to talk to because all of my friends are Mark's friends. And now Blab, and you are literally the only person in the whole world who knows what's happening besides me. And if I keep talking to myself about it, I'm gonna go crazy. For real. Like really.
I can't talk to you.
So just to describe the video a little bit, it's really inappropriate. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie The Other Woman. Those two people were like dating, I guess, the same person, and the one was like married to him, and I don't know the one actress name, but Cameron Diaz, she doesn't really know this woman, she just knows like she was getting cheated on or whatever, and so her showing up to her door, just blabbing all this, giving all this self-disclosure about herself, saying she's gonna start crying, she doesn't know what to do with herself, that's a violation of a cultural norm, and it's like a behavioral encounter.
Yeah, and you could see the discomfort on Cameron Diaz's face.
Yeah.
So continued, we have the proactive uncertainty reduction and the retroactive uncertainty reduction. So with proactive, we're gonna, that's when you're thinking about communication options before actually engaging with that person. So say you are at a party or whatnot, you want to talk to somebody across the room, you're proactively thinking about, all right, what am I going to say to them, and what's going to get them to keep talking to me. And you can also have that come into play when you proactively want to stay away from the other person. So you see them maybe approaching you, you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do to not speak to them? And with retroactive uncertainty reduction, consists of attempts to explain behavior after the encounter itself. So I don't know about anybody else, but after a conversation I'll have with somebody, I'm thinking about what I said or my behavior after the fact, or what their behavior was, and kind of trying to explain that to myself, and kind of like an interior monologue after the encounter.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 7 concepts relating to uncertainty reduction theory. So the first one is a verbal output of verbal communication, and that is literally just speaking back and forth to each other. And then there's nonverbal warmth, where it's like a pleasant tone, like you lean in, kind of engage in the conversation. And then information seeking, which is basically what it sounds like. You're seeking information, asking questions, waiting for like an answer, which, and then we have self-disclosure again, which is disclosing more information about yourself. Then we have reciprocity of disclosure, which is like reciprocation. You're waiting for someone to disclose information themselves back. So it's a back and forth process. Then similarity, like sharing a commonality of something. So say if Deirdre and I shared a commonality of a band that we like, that would reduce uncertainty because we both have something in common. And then liking, the feeling that a person likes you. So if I know Deirdre likes me, the uncertainty is going to be reduced because I have that comfort of her knowing that she likes me. So we watch a video.
Does anybody have any questions so far? Good.
Okay. Okay, this one's a really.
Shout to 4 award-winning directors. Gave them a
It's a really helpful video. They're gonna give little explanations at the bottom. I'm gonna go into more depth after, but just wait for this time.
That's funny.
Yeah, why?
I can consider it.
Okay.
right?
I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Hitch. It's really good. Okay, so we also said they're gonna explain some things at 5 and go and watch that after.
Comes in there once in a while. Great temper. What's her drink? Usually beer. Tonight, Grey Goose
We're working on
Martini.
the strategies, those will be explained a little bit here after that.
Hi. I noticed your glass was getting a little low, so I took the liberty of bringing you another apple martini.
Thank you.
And I couldn't help but notice you look a lot like my next girlfriend.
What's your name?
They call me Chip.
You can't get him to stop?
That was funny.
Listen, Chip, I understand the courage it takes to walk across the room and try to generate a relationship out of thin air. So don't take the following personal.
You have fantastic eyes.
Thanks. Try to listen. This is no reflection on you. I'm just not interested. But thank you for the compliment of coming over.
You're welcome. So do you like Cuban food?
Chip, seriously, that was not code word. I wish you'd try harder.
Are you always so shut down and afraid the right man might make you feel like a natural woman?
Sorry I'm late, honey. I couldn't get a cab. How was the meeting?
Oh, well, there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. Nice to meet you, Chip.
You too.
Now, on the one hand, it is very difficult for a man to even speak to someone that looks like you. But on the other hand, should that be your problem?
So life's kind of hard all around.
Not if you pay attention. I mean, you're sending all the right signals. No earrings, heels under 2 inches, your hair is pulled back, you're wearing reading glasses with no book, drinking a Grey Goose Martini, which means you had a hell of a week and a beer just wouldn't do it. And if that wasn't clear enough, there's always the fuck off that you have stamped on your forehead. Because who's going to believe that there's a man out there that can sit down beside a woman he doesn't know and genuinely be interested in who she is, what she does, without his own agenda?
Yeah, I wouldn't even know what that would look like. So what would a guy like that say?
Well, he'd say, my name is Alex Hitchens and I'm a consultant.
Hitch means
But
like
she wouldn't be
one
interested in that because she'd probably be just counting the seconds until he left.
Thinking he was like every other guy.
Which life experiences taught her as a virtual certainty. But then he'd ask her name and what she did for a living. And she might blow him off. Or she might say,
I'm Sarah Milas. I run the gossip column at the Standard. And then he'd ask all these penetrating questions about
Leading in, he was
sincerely, atypically interested.
no,
No.
he'd be interested. But he'd see that there was no way he could possibly make her realize that he was for real.
Well, he could be funny and charming and refreshingly original.
Wouldn't help.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
Not really. They both probably go on to lead the lives they were headed toward. My guess is they do just fine. Pleasure to have met you, Sarah Milas.
Okay, so. Okay, so just to clarify a little information if anyone was confused, it did explain most every part of what the concept was when we were talking. So Sarah, the girl, I don't know her name, was giving more communication. She was reciprocating in self-disclosure. They both did an example of nonverbal warmth where they leaned in, and then there was some examples of similarity where they showed, when they were talking about.
They were relating about something.
Yeah, they were relating about something. And then there was an example of liking when Hitch, I think, said something that she'd be interested, or she'd be interested to kind of explain what was going to happen. So that was just a quick example.
Okay, so about our 5 assumptions. The first one is cognitive stress is generated when people experience uncertainty in interpersonal settings. So a lot of times with maybe initial encounters, for example, you're going to have that cognitive stress going on in your mind when you are having these interactions. Number 2, when strangers meet, their primary concern is to reduce their uncertainty and increase predictability. So you want to gain comfort by kind of being more familiar with the other person and being able to predict their kind of behavior or interactions more, and to reduce your own uncertainty. Number 3, interpersonal communication is a developmental process that occurs through stages and is the primary means of uncertainty reduction. So we have 3 stages. We're going to go into more detail in the following slides, but there's the entry stage entry stage where you're getting to know the person, just introducing yourself, hi, how are you? And then we have the second stage where you're kind of actively getting more information from them. And the third stage is the exit stage. So you're going to decide whether or not you want this person to interact with you anymore, or if you want to just tell them to see you later. The fourth one is the quantity of nature of information that people share change through time. So again, with your initial encounter, you're going to have pretty minimal information exchange, but as time goes on, you're going to share stuff about like your past or kind of the way that you think and stuff like that, so they're going to be able to get to know you better. And 5, it is possible to predict behavior in a law-like fashion. So that's pretty much what it sounds like.
We'll go into more depth because we have a slide for each of the assumptions, and we'll explain more about that one. We do. All right. So the first assumption is the number of interpersonal settings and how people feel uncertain when they don't know the setting. When it's an unfamiliar, uncertainty increases. So when you don't know really where you are, you feel like uncertain. So then there's differing expectations exist for interpersonal occasions. So you expect different things out of different occasions. And then reasonable to conclude that people are uncertain or nervous about when they're first meeting. So a good example about this was freshman year. Many remembers everyone was super nervous coming, at least I was, super nervous about coming in. I only knew one person. But there were some things that they did that helped reduce uncertainty. So like the candlelight ceremony, where you met a lot of people in your hall and you all like did one big group together. So like you all were uncertain about the setting of what you were in, but like everyone was uncertain about it. So reduction was decreased a little. And then like the first floor meetings when they did like the icebreakers and like say who you are, that reduced uncertainty because your setting is much different, no one really knows where they are, so it's just
Okay, so the second assumption is when 2 people meet, reducing uncertainty and increasing predictability are 2 important concerns. Like what I said before, you really just want to kind of know what's coming next from the other person and reduce your uncertainty by doing so. It's dealt through information seeking, so asking questions and expecting an answer from the other person. So where are you from, what's your major, stuff like that is what you're going to start off with. And people do this unconsciously. It's kind of like a second nature to most, and that is something that may not go across all cultures as well. It may be a little different elsewhere. An example is speed dating. That's kind of like the prime spot for all that stuff.
Yeah, doing speed dating, I don't know if anyone ever done it. I've personally never done it, but I've seen things about it. And it's quick interactions, quick information seeking. You're predicting, like, or reducing uncertainty and increasing predictability. What can you predict from the next person? Okay, so then this assumption is a little bit bigger, more important because it has 3 really important phases that talk about developmental stages and how to reduce uncertainty. So, like Deidre was saying before, we have the entry phase, which is the beginning of an interaction when strangers first meet. So, quick little hi, how are you doing? Like, small talk basically. It's like a really small interaction of like, what's your name? What's your major? And then there's personal phase, where it's a stage in relationship where you become more personal, and so you talk more. You could explain more about the family if people ask, or if it's in that level. Talk about your family, about your life, like exchange all kinds of more personal, in-depth conversation. And then there's the exit stage, where you either decide you want to engage in this conversation, be with that person, continue a relationship, or just get out of there, because there's a lot of ways you can do that. So the two theorists, Berger and Calabrese, believe that these are both the universal framework that exists in how to interpret interpersonal communication develops interpersonal relationships. We have another clip. A lot of our clips, they have like a little explanation. I'll go into more depth about that too, though. Let's move on.
But you gotta have friends. Stop singing! No wonder you don't have any friends. Wow. Only a true friend would be that truly honest. Listen, little dog.
This is the beginning of
Take a
Country
look
Days.
at me. What am I?
That's not that positive.
Really tall?
No! I'm an ogre! You know, grab your torch and pitchforks. Doesn't that bother you? Nope.
Really?
Really, really. Oh, man, I like you. What's your name?
Shrek.
Shrek.
So that's kind
You
of
know what I
what
like about
Country
you,
Days
Shrek?
as in
I don't care what nobody thinks of me, man. I like that. I respect that, Shrek. You all right. What kind of quest?
This goes into the second phase.
We're gonna go fight a dragon and rescue a princess just so Farquhar to get you back to Swamp, which you only don't have because you filled it full of freaks in the first place. Is that about right?
You know what? Maybe there's a good reason Donkey shouldn't talk.
I don't get it, Shrek. Why don't you just pull some of that ogre stuff on him? You know, drown him, lay siege to his haunches, grab his bones to make your bread. You know the whole ogre trick.
Oh, I know what. Maybe I could have decapitated an entire village and put their heads on a plate, got a knife, cut open their spleen, and drank their fluids. Does that sound good to
Just
you?
want to stop it right there just to say something. When Shrek was describing all the vulgar things that ogres usually do, uncertainty is really high at this stage because Donkey isn't aware of what ogres believe and like what they're aware of. So that would also be like the cognitive uncertainty, what we talked about a little before, because he doesn't know his beliefs, so he's like a little like the uncertainty is really high there.
No, not really, no.
For your information, there's a lot more to ogres than people think.
Example?
Example? Okay, ogres are like onions. They stink?
Yes.
No. Oh, they make you cry? No. Oh, you leave them out in the sun, they get all brown, start sprouting little white heads. No. Layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers. Oh, you both have layers. Huh. You know, not everybody likes onions. What are you doing? You let me get
Just
away.
maybe the third
Yeah,
phase.
so what? Shrek, there's something about it you don't know. I talked to her last night. Yes, I know you talked to her last night. You're great pals, aren't you? Now, you two are such good friends. Why don't you follow her home? Shrek, I want to go with you. Hey, I told you, didn't I? You're not coming home with me. I live alone. My swamp. Me. Nobody else. Understand? Nobody. Especially useless, pedantic, annoying, talking donkeys. Yeah, you know what? You thought wrong. Huh.
So just a little more description of the video. So the entry phase was when they first met, and Donkey was very interested in engaging in conversation, and then Shrek disclosed a little bit of information about himself, saying he's an ogre. Even though it wasn't a very positive kind of relationship, it still showed the phase of entry phase. And then when they were going on the quest to save the princess, or whatever storyline goes, he was explaining a little more about himself, and then I stopped in and I said about the cognitive behavior of not knowing. That gives a little more self-disclosed information about Shrek and how, so that would be related more into the personal space. And then he says how onions have layers, just like ogres have layers, or something in that line. And so that was just kind of explaining a little more information about himself. And then the last thing we just saw was the exit stage obviously, because Shrek is leaving. And uncertainty is high because Donkey wants to continue the friendship, but Shrek doesn't at all. And so Shrek decides to not continue the relationship, so he's exiting.
So assumption 4 is about the nature of time. So interpersonal communication is developmental. So kind of self-explanatory. Over time, your communication with another is going to develop and grow. And initial interactions are key elements in the developmental process. So your initial interaction might set the tone for the rest of your relationship with that other person. So example, being a freshman in your first class, you meet another anxious student and immediately feel more comfortable through conversation. So your uncertainty is going to decrease when getting to know the other people through time and building a relationship with them possibly.
Okay, so the fifth assumption, people's behaviors can be predicted in a law-like fashion, meaning that you can predict what would be next, and it goes like basically in order of like how it would be. A guideline for covering law is human behavior is regulated by generalizable principles in like a law-like manner, so like going fashionably in order. You move statement to statement and just continue. They're also presumed to be true, so they're statements that are derived from like, the truth.
So, to axioms, the heart of the theory. So, in front of you, you have your second sheet of paper.
Very important, this paper.
Yes, and definitely going into our like future tests on all these theories, keep this in mind. It's one of the biggest things about the heart of it. Okay, so axioms. Axioms are truisms drawn from past research and common sense. They require no further proof than the statement itself, so it's just set in stone, black and white, no ifs and or buts. It must be accepted as valid because they're the building blocks for everything else in the theory. So it's like your base layer, and then everything goes on top of that. And each axiom represents a relationship between uncertainty and one other concept. So you're going to have your 7 original axioms, and then on top of that we have 2 more that came after the fact.
So we're going to go into about these. So just to kind of clarify first, it's not all like 1 through whatever, it's all different. So 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7 are all inverse relationships, and that'll go more into depth a little later. And then 3 and 5 are positive relationships.
So by that we mean inverse relationships. So like when your verbal communication goes up, your uncertainty reduction goes down because you're getting more certain, I guess, as you continue to speak. And the same goes for the other 4 up there. And then the positive relationship is the reciprocity. For example, the more reciprocation you get, the, I guess, less is really
positive inverse. Or positive relationship, yes. It's a little.
We're still learning too. So.
If we want to reference, because you guys are talking about the kind of this idea of the thing.
Yeah.
So what they're talking about, there is a, what is it, what page is that on in the textbook? Where is it?
And this is a difficult part of the theory. There's so many, you guys, because it is a social scientific theory, there's a lot of information that you need to know. So actually it's found on page 150. There's 2 tables you can take a look at. It's table 8.1 and table 8.2. And this is what they're referring to in relation to the axioms of uncertainty reduction theory. Make sure that you take a look back and read it yourself. It is a bit difficult to understand, but it talks about the kind of the cause and effect relationship based on the axioms, and that's what you guys are talking about. Okay?
Yeah, it's a little more difficult to go through the book, and it'll help understand. There's like a big chart for it. So.
communication. So high levels of verbal output correlate positively with a greater reduction in uncertainty and higher levels of communication, intimacy, and similarities between individuals and liking. The second one, the nonverbal affiliative expressiveness. So that's kind of talking about your positive signs in person's gestures and body language. So say I'm having a conversation with Devin, if I'm leaning in, or that could mean like a positive kind of tone to the communication, or if I'm like backing up with my arms crossed, that's a little bit more negative. Intimacy level of communication. So individuals are willingly divulging information about themselves to reduce uncertainty in the other person. Similarity. So individuals who are like or share interests will feel less uncertain about each other and achieve communication intimacy more quickly. So that just kind of goes along with Devin and I have similarities, but I could meet someone from, say it's out of the state of New York, maybe I have a little bit less similar with them, and it might take longer to reduce my uncertainty. And then in regards to liking, so if you have a feeling from somebody else that they don't like you, your conversations are probably going to end pretty quickly. And on the other side of the coin, if they do like you, you're going to be able to communicate better and your uncertainty is reduced. Any questions? Everybody go.
Okay, so then the positive relationship axioms, which is information seeking. So individuals that wish to learn more about each other can be gained through passively, actively, and interactively. But those will be described a little bit later, so we'll come back to that. And so if you want to know more about the person, the positive relationship increases. And then the reciprocity of individuals interested in reducing uncertainty or starting a relationship. The reciprocation will reduce behavior such as like asking more questions. So if you reciprocate, it's a positive relationship. Any questions about that?
And additionally, we have two more axioms, the social network. So that involves interacting with friends and family of the other person. So say you're starting off a relationship, you know base level about your significant other, and then upon meeting their friends, their family, you're kind of getting a better idea of who they are, where they came from, and it's reducing your uncertainty about that other person. And communication satisfaction, an effective response to the accomplishment of communication goals and expectations. So how satisfied you are with the communication with the other person and what they're giving back to you. And again, definitely check out the textbook to kind of think about it in your own way and see it all in front of you.
Yeah. And if the way we explained it was a little confusing, yeah, definitely go back to the book, look over the sheet. It's a little bit more confusing, like Pascal said, but it's a very important aspect of uncertainty reduction theory.
And I think the best way to understand it, if I would just sum it up, and I've said it before, so first of all, this theory at its core has these axioms. If you remember, this is what I talked about at the beginning, right? So these are the kind of the axioms that you're going to need to know, all right? And then from the axioms, they created this idea of theorems, okay? That if you take the axioms, right? So we take the axiom of verbal communication, right? And we take the axiom of verbal communication. But if somebody is really giving me positive nonverbal communication, and they're really expressive, then that means that that we're going to have a positive relationship, right? That's going to bring us closer together. Okay, so if we look at chart 8.2, that table, that's what it's saying. Again, if I'm giving verbal communication, right? But if somebody is like, as far as like information seeking, and they're seeking too much information, I'm going to say, oh, this is a little uncomfortable, and what is that going to do? That's going to increase my uncertainty. So if you look at the chart, and you're looking at the positive and the negatives, right? So if someone is not seeking information, you see how it has the chart down here, and that's going to be a negative, right? If I'm talking to you, and you're not asking me, you're not seeking information from you, how am I going to feel? How do I feel? Bad, right? So essentially, you guys, if you look at that chart, that's the only thing that it's saying. It is a visual representation. It's actually pretty simple. and it really does make sense, make sure you take a look at the chart. And then it talks about, the nonverbal affiliated expressiveness, right? And so if someone is seeking information and I'm like, and they're not giving me anything and I'm like this, what's the reaction gonna be? If I'm like this, I'm closing down, right? And that's gonna increase uncertainty. And really, essentially, that's what it's talking about. Also, these axioms are talking about these relationships. So you guys remember chart 8.1 and 8.2. If you do so in your notes, hopefully you guys wrote that down. That's what you're going to need to know is say, okay, how does this axiom relate to this theorem? All right. So think about that. You're gonna I have it on Learn Smart. Did anybody take a look at Learn Smart yet? Yeah. So it kind of talks about these axioms and these theorems. And it really just deals with, if you guys can see this theory, one thing about this theory and these axioms, it's really just dealing with the initial encounter with someone. It doesn't deal with what happens, if you know someone for a significant amount of time. So you can see how that can be extremely awkward. That's why they kind of put this activity together at first. So I don't know if that brings you a little bit more clarity in understanding how you have to have the axioms first, and then you have the theorems that come from the axioms. Okay? And it's difficult because you think about this notion of social psychology, really? You're telling me A equals B all the time? And this is where a lot of people have a lot of issues with this theory. They're saying, how in the world are you going to say that this is an axiom? Because is anybody here a scientist or has taken hard science classes before? Anyone? So you realize when you think about an idea of an axiom, what do you think about?
Well, if it's based on learning things like that, it's all facts and things you put out.
Right. So what he's saying essentially is this is a fact. If this happens, this will happen. And that is kind of a very interesting place to be, especially in relation to communication. Because when you guys are looking at it, he's saying, interpreting meaning, but yet he's putting axiom on it. That's why it seems like, what do you mean this is going to happen, right? Because as communication scholars, we don't necessarily think about the world in that way, that A equals B, right? We kind of think about notions of social constructivism and stuff. And so this is why he's constantly having to defend this theory. This is kind of closer to kind of hard science than anything else. And that's why it has so much information. You notice a theory, it has so many nominal terms, right? And you're like, why do you need all of these terms to explain that? But what he was trying to do in the field of communication is justify it in the idea of science. So that's why we have so many of these things, you guys. Okay. Any questions from me or the group?
Okay, so then there's also some antecedent conditions, and these are, so a person has potential to be rewarded or to be punished, and a good example of this is if anyone has seen the movie Mean Girls, I hope everyone has because it's a great movie. So when Katie was accepted by the Plastics, or the popular girls, she felt that she was being rewarded with popularity and all these fancy things. But then when the Plastics and basically the whole school didn't like Katie because she pushed Regina George in front of the bus, she felt as though she was being punished. She had basically no friends. She was an athlete or whatever that was. So that was reward and punishment for that. And then persons have contrary to expectations. So social norms might suggest that staring is pretty impolite. So for example, if I were to just stare at Deirdre for a long period of time, that would be considered a violation of a social norm. And then, so Berger predicts that Deirdre's desire to reduce uncertainty increases, so she doesn't really want to know me if I just stare at her for a really long time. Or, so yeah, the uncertainty is, increases in her and she doesn't really want to care, so. And then persons expect future interaction with another. So, for an example for this, is that I know that Deirdre is a broadcasting major and I'm a communications major. This might be the only class that we have together, so I can predict that I'm not gonna probably see her anymore after this if I didn't live with her and wasn't friends with her. So like I could avoid her in the future. And Berger would expect that my desire to increase predictability is high. Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
So again, we have 3 strategies to reducing uncertainty. The first one is the passive. So we're reducing uncertainty by unobtrusive observations. So say I just met you, I know your name, I would maybe Google you, find out a little bit about yourself in maybe public records, or find your Facebook, LinkedIn, anything like that online. Active is reducing uncertainties by means other than direct contact. So say, just met you, I want to know a little bit about you. If we're at school, maybe I talk to one of your teammates or talk to your suite mates or something like that to find out what kind of person you are. And then interactive strategy is reducing uncertainties by engaging in conversation. So is what it is, you walk up to someone, getting information that way from the source itself. And Berger believes certain behaviors, such as asking inappropriately sensitive questions, may increase rather than decrease uncertainty, and people may need additional reduction strategies. So if you're going up to someone and asking really, really personal stuff, their uncertainty is going to increase, and the way that they maybe answer you could increase your uncertainty as well. It's going to be a little weird.
Okay, so then we're going to move on to develop relationships. So uncertainty are ongoing relationships. No matter like how long you've been with someone, there's somewhat always a uncertainty, unless like, yeah. So the making the process of uncertainty reduction relevant in developed relationship is part, as well as initial interactions. So then there's relational uncertainty, which is a lack of certainty about the future of a status of a relationship. So you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and that's relational uncertainty. And you expect rewards, be surprised by, anticipate the future reaction. And with going back to the 3 antecedent conditions, those develop a relationship.
Yeah, so the, and that bullet point is on your worksheet to fill in.
So, and then there might be a tension when reducing and increasing uncertainty in developed relationships, so it might be a little awkwardness. And then just a quote by Berger and Calabrese: while uncertainty reduction may be rewarding to a point, the ability to completely predict another's behavior might lead to boredom. So boredom is in a personal relationship might as well cost rather than a reward. So
interesting.
Yeah. So
maybe after you're with somebody for a while, or friends with someone for a while, whatever it is, there's going to be a point maybe you think you know everything about them, and you might get a little bored. So
it might cost you a relationship rather than rewarding you a relationship.
That's an interesting concept, though, right? Mm-hmm. So they're saying that you can predict things in a relationship, but that's going to be people.
Yeah. So if there's really no spontaneous like interactions in a relationship, you just become initially bored with the person.
And then long distance relationships. So there's more uncertainty that exists in a relationship. The more jealousy, the less trust, and fewer maintenance behaviors also exist within long distance relationships. So trust is a potent means for reducing relational uncertainty. So especially in long distance relationships, if you do not have that trust there, the uncertainty about your relationship and that person is definitely going to be an all-time high. And then, so a study was done, you can find it within your textbook, but those in long distance relationships with no face-to-face interaction suffered significantly more relational uncertainty, because maybe they were missing those key parts of being comfortable with someone, being able to see their nonverbal affiliative expressions, like the leaning forward when you're talking, or seeing how their facial expressions may be. And then this especially suggests future research into the utility and heroism of uncertainty reduction theory. So a lot more research to come in that segment.
Just to touch off that, so the relational uncertainty is high because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So, especially in long distance relationships, they could be doing their own thing somewhere and you could be doing your own thing anywhere. So we just want to ask, is anyone in here, I guess you don't raise your hand, you don't feel comfortable in a long distance relationship? Okay, can you just ask, how does like the relationship a little bit affected by it?
Well, it's definitely difficult because he lives in Arizona, I live here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
not only the distance that increases uncertainty, but also the time change as well. So when I'm in school, he can be doing something different. He's available, I'm not available. So it's a lot of the timing has to be right, and some people have to give up some of the things they do that they. So I'll say, all right, well, I'll stay up late tonight, and we can talk. So if it's like 10 his time, then it could be like 1 or 2 my time.
So yeah, so relational uncertainty is a little higher than if you were dating someone here. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, so social media, which is a big part of everyone's world nowadays. So uncertainty reduction theory can be applied to computer-mediated communication, which basically just means online communication. So, so information seeking on the internet is similar to how uncertainty reduction theory is pre-online environment involving the passive, active, and interactive strategies. So, so like when studying the differences of information seeking versus online, there's like a big difference of ways people communicate through a computer screen or when talking to someone face to face. And actually, just not to get too far ahead, but my articles both touch on computer-mediated communication, or computer-mediated communication, and they touch about what it's like to talk to someone online rather than face to face, and what is more disclosed, and I'll get more into that later. But online information seeking allows communication to employ several approaches and simultaneously reduce uncertainty.
Yeah, and my articles actually deal with online relationships versus face-to-face relationships as well. And again, those slides will be towards the end. Social media continued. So Googling someone provides a great deal of information about them that they may not even be aware is in the public's eye. So you're doing your little bit of investigating. Researchers have found that Googling forms a special case of active information seeking strategy called extractive strategy. So again, it involves online searches to obtain information about a specific person that they may not even give off otherwise. Again, with public records, maybe they're less inclined to tell you that got arrested or something, I don't know. So that's what you'll find out on your own if you Google them.
Okay, so online dating. So we have those online dating websites like Tinder, which is a big thing around here, Match.com, eHarmony, Christian Mingle, the 1,000 different online websites for every kind of person. So online disclosure do not occur in a symmetric fashion, meaning the people don't talk, like when talking online, you don't have to go in a special order. You can kind of just jump around anywhere where you want to talk, but it would be a little more weird, or uncertainty would be a little higher if you were doing that face to face. If you just, if I start talking with Deirdre, instead of opening with "Hi, how are you?" and just go,
"Do you have any dogs?"
Have any dogs? With your like, just like what you would actually talk online. And then one who is doing online communication can use extractive strategies at any point in the conversation. You could be talking to someone and be like, well, are they really saying this? And then, or have they been arrested? So you just go and Google real quick, use an extractive strategy. And then there's asymmetric information exchange, which is important for online dating because the risk of deception is very high. And I don't know if anyone has seen the show Catfish. Very good show. Someone online can be catfishing you, which is, I guess now created a verb of telling you something and completely different. If you've seen the show, it's crazy. Some people could be talking to their cousin, which was an actual episode. It's strange, but the personal security online is, the personal safety is contributed to the asymmetric information. And actually, my article does talk about the personal safety in communication online. And so online daters use more direct questioning than it, which can confirm the uncertainty reduction theory. So you can just directly ask a question because you feel more confident because you're kind of between a screen. So you're not like, because if like you were on, say you want to date with someone and you just want to like ask that question, but it's super uncomfortable if you just go right into it. But like online, there's kind of a barrier, so you kind of just go for it.
And you're not going to see their kind of like nonverbal expressions, their face gestures. So yeah, context. We're going to kind of speed up a little bit because I know we're getting short on time. But we have uncertainty varying across cultures. A new theory that deals specifically with culture is the anxiety uncertainty management. So the theorists have concluded that Japan, Korea, and the U.S. being attracted to another most likely reduces some uncertainty in acquaintance, friend, and dating relationships. However, they add that reduced uncertainty may not lead to increased attraction. So just because your uncertainty level is down doesn't mean that your attraction level is up.
Okay, so low context culture, which would be United States, Germany, and Switzerland. The meaning is in the coded message, so listeners are supposed to be able to understand the meaning merely on the words the speaker's using. So, yeah. So, and then high context cultures, the meaning of the message is internalized by listener and may reside in context. So, a lot of people from the high context culture think that low context culture people are more blunt, and that like the high context culture, they're more in the meaning. So they nonverbal messages, for example, like the nonverbal cues, or so like messages in culture, like people in Japan, Korea, China, they bow. So it's a nonverbal message of showing respect. So it's in the meaning.
Yes, so context continued. So collective cultures are more indirect communication being used with individuals who are not identified as members of the cultural in-group. Here, uncertainty avoidance is an attempt to shun or avoid ambiguous situations. So it refers to a person's tolerance for uncertainty. So if you have a high tolerance, you may be able to have conversation with someone from another culture and not feel awkward or and your high uncertainty avoidance cultures are Japan, France, Korea, Mexico, and they feel that what is different is dangerous, so they're kind of trying to shy away from interactions with other cultures. And then low uncertainty avoidance cultures, Canada, the US, England, China, what is different is curious, so they're kind of like, I meet someone from another culture, I have interest in what they're saying and how they communicate.
Okay, so the judiciary context and approach knowing. So back to what we were saying earlier about Berger doing being a psych major, but focusing in psychology really goes for the socio-psychological tradition because there's a cause and effect in uncertainty reduction theory. For example, cause would be self-disclosing, the effect would be reducing uncertainty. There's also behavior and how it's influenced by something. You do something and someone reciprocates. Then there's intrapersonal and interpersonal. So intra, reflecting on what you say or what you want to disclose, very personal inside. And then interpersonal, you're obviously having a conversation with someone or it wouldn't really work. And then positivistic empirical, the goal is to construct general laws governing human interaction and regarding to the uncertainty reduction theory.
And then just regarding the critique, so the utility, they had two problems so far with the theory. One is they're more concerned with maximizing rewards in a personal potential relationship. What?
So the theorist, Michael Summerfrank, he argues that reducing uncertainty isn't what initially is like the primary goal, and then Berger argues with that, but also this goes off of, he says like maximizing reward and potential relationship, and Berger's response is that outcomes cannot be predicted without knowledge and reducing uncertainty about self. The second problem was validity, and going back to the axioms about information seeking, there was an example in the book about 9/11, sometimes more information was also greater uncertainty, and then McKinley and Fama, found empirical support for that axiom, and undoubtedly continue the uncertainty reduction's usefulness.
And then in just regards to heurism, it inspired other research in small groups, mass communication, and mediated communication. Just real quick to go over my articles. The first one was the impact of online consumer reviews on value perception. So when you go onto sites like Yelp or Travel TripAdvisor, that information you find is it's gonna increase your value perception. It's gonna decrease your uncertainty about that restaurant, and that definitely affects their success as restaurants. And that dealt with your interpersonal relationship, kind of with the consumer, and your interpersonal relationship with your own thought processes regarding what you find. And then my second one is in regards to, they did a study on face-to-face relationships versus online dating relationships, and how they disclosed information differently, and how they, like what kind of information they were more comfortable with sharing. Face-to-face was a lot more comfortable with stuff like fears and phone numbers and kind of more personal stuff like that.
Okay, and then to touch this looks like a lot of it's really simple. My article, First Comes Love, Then Comes Google, which explains how investigate relationship, privacy concerns, uncertainty reduction, and then it goes kind of into like how much people self-disclose, how much internet experience they have, what's their personal safety and self-efficacy, and it just kind of goes into using a survey, asking like all these questions, like do you use extractive strategies like Googling, do you compare photos to the profile, all this kind of uncertainty about the person you're talking to online, and then they were confirming whether like your personal security, self-efficacy, and disclosure were confirmed through uncertainty reduction theory. And my second one, real quickly, was interactive uncertainty reduction strategies. This one was a little different because it used 3 different kinds of methods, really. A text-based one where you were only allowed to text the person, like you were in an experiment and you were only allowed to text the person using like emoticons and stuff like that. And then you had a face-to-face conversation where it was open-ended, and then there was where you talk to someone through a screen, kind of like FaceTiming, but there's no audio, and you can use like a chat room to talk. And it just wanted to show like the uncertainty reduction of how you communicate through that.
Okay, and then to wrap it on up, uncertainty reduction theory is an important theory because it's an everyday occurrence that helps develop relationships and reduce uncertainties that one may have when engaging in self-disclosure. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Thank you all.
We got 3 minutes.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, so don't worry, they're wrapping up, but it's 12:27. I know you guys are looking. Yeah.
I think it was 12:25.
12:30.
Okay. So any questions? Does everyone understand? We kind of went faster at the end. Sorry, we were a little nervous on time, but is everything pretty much clear to everyone? Definitely keep those sheets. Axiom ones definitely, because that was a big concern. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you.